Hello, hello, guys. Welcome. Give it a second. Get some polls in the chat. Okay. All right, all right. All right, guys, real talk. If someone had said Web3 to you and your eyes glazed over a little bit, then this conversation they're about to have is for you. Because every major wealth shift in history has had an early window for positioning. The internet had one, mobile technology had one, mobile phones, smartphones, and we are sitting inside of Web3's early window right now. And the clock is ticking. Web3 just did to banking what Netflix did to Blockbuster. Most people don't really know about it yet, and they're still renting DVDs, so to speak. So stay with me and let's chat about it. All right, guys, everybody, I'm so glad that you are here. I'm gonna let this song finish out, but as people are coming on or coming on, just wave at me, say hey. I'm gonna try to keep an eye on the chat as we're going. And if you catch us on the replay, answer the polls I dropped into the comments. I'd love to hear your take on things, okay? Let me know where you're tuning in from. I always like to see who's in the room with me and who's listening and who's paying attention and leaning in, okay? But for those of you who might be new to my world, I am Hannah Chijoke Davis. I am the founder of the Iconicity Movement. And the work that I do is all about helping visionary women and men, hey, Grandma, visionary women and men create what I call their iconic lives. Lives that integrate purpose, wealth, freedom, leadership, and real joy. Not just success on paper, but lives that people are genuinely, wildly in love with creating and living. And if you've been around here for a little bit, you know that some of the reason that I care so much about this conversation is because my own life took some pretty um, powerful turns that forced me to rethink what security, wealth, and freedom actually means. From being widowed at 32 years old with five babies, like they were 8 months old to 9 years old, to standing in the very real possibility of losing my home, being foreclosed on, like within weeks, to realizing that even a great professional career can still leave you financially vulnerable, especially if your income depends entirely on your time and your body, your physical body. Those experiences change how I think about money, leadership, and building a life that actually supports the life that you want to live. So, the conversation we're going to have today, now, and in a few minutes in the Zoom room, sits inside of like a bigger vision that I've created. Inside of my community, I've been having this series of conversations about wealth, sovereignty, entrepreneurship, and building financial lives that actually create freedom and wealth. So today I want to walk you through something that's been kind of eye-opening for a lot of people. And if you're someone who cares about building wealth differently, who wants more freedom in your life and your work, or simply knows that there has to be a smarter way to build your financial future, then you're in the right room. Okay. So let's jump in. All right, guys. So again, I dropped a couple of poll questions in the chat. So if you could answer that, I would love to hear your guys' takeaway on that. Okay. It kind of gives me a little bit of feedback on who we're talking to and what people are seeing or hearing. Because again, this is kind of it's new, right? We're in the new era of something happening, and I want to see who in my community understands this or has learned a little bit about it, or maybe you've never heard about it, right? So, all right, I want to be honest with you guys for a second, because when I first started hearing the phrase Web3, I kind of glossed over as well, right? Like, okay, yeah, yeah, more tech stuff, more crypto things, got it, and I'm busy, I'm moving on, right? And that, probably wasn't the wisest choice to make because I definitely have learned some patterns from ignoring things that are out there. But Web3 is actually not a tech conversation. Hear me out. It's a wealth conversation. It's a freedom conversation. And once I kind of understood what that was and where it is going, everything I was already curious about and I already looking into, this all kind of clicked into place, right? It was like puzzle pieces just coming together. So today I want to do for you what I wish someone had maybe done for me. I just want to explain it very briefly, very plainly. No, overwhelmed with this here. Just a couple minutes, and I want to show you why the timing of this conversation that we're having right now actually really matters for you. Okay, I've got 4 points, quick tonight. Won't take very long. Like I said, if you're here live, wave at me in the comments, add into those poll questions if you're on replay, leave me your thoughts because I come back and I read every single one and respond to them. Okay, all right, so let's go. Number one, Web3. What the heck is it actually? So starting at the beginning, because I think a lot of people don't, and then the rest of it doesn't make so much sense, right? But you think about it, the internet has gone through several versions or iterations of itself, right? Think of it like software updates maybe, but for the entire interwebs, okay? Web 1 was the internet of the like 1990s, okay? You could read things. Websites were basically like digital newspapers of a sort, right? Nobody was really creating content other than like in like forums where we talked, chat forums. Nobody was really, really interacting though, right? You just could look at it, you could read it, you could gather some information, right? Then came Web 2, and that's essentially the internet that we are all living with right now. Social media, YouTube, Google, Amazon. The big shift with Web 2 was that we could create and we could interact. But here's the catch. Everything that we create, everything that we do, all of our data that we're putting onto these platforms, it belongs to the platforms. Facebook owns, or Meta owns your content. Google owns your search history. Amazon probably knows your shopping habits better than your best friend does, and certainly maybe even more than you do, right? We all signed up for it without thinking twice because it was free, it was convenient, and it made our lives better, faster, easier, right? Like the ability to have Amazon on my phone, it might not be great for my bank account, but it was sure great for my life, right? As a busy mom and a career woman and as an entrepreneur, like that's really convenient, right? But the price was our data, right? And these companies, you guys, they built $1 trillion companies off of it, off of us. Well, what we got was the app that we could create an account on that we could use, right? We got some convenience and things like that, right? So Web3 is the next version. And the fundamental shift in that is this: ownership goes back to the user. Hear that again. Ownership is coming back to you and I. Okay. Your data, your digital assets, your financial activity, you hold it, not a platform or a server somewhere, not a corporation, not a bank, you. Okay. So it's being built on blockchain technology, which is basically like, think of like a record keeping system that doesn't live in one place. It can't be altered and it doesn't need like a middleman to verify it. Okay. It's like a transparent ledger, kind of like a Google Doc that the whole world can see and that nobody can secretly edit and no single company or entity or government controls. That is the foundation that Web3 is being built on, which is a lot of security and a lot of transparency, which feels good, right? The concept of this is actually pretty simple. What is being built on top of it, that's where it gets really interesting and exciting if you understand what it is and how to position yourself for it. Which brings me to point number 2, what Web3 already does in our real lives. Okay, so I want you to hear this because I think most people assume that Web3 is just like this futuristic thing that we're kind of waiting on in the, maybe in a couple decades. But you guys, it's not. It's already being used right now in ways that touch our everyday life. Most people just don't realize that that's what it's called or that's what it is. So here's a few real examples. And as I share these, I want you to notice how many of these things connect to things you probably already thought about or wished were different maybe for you. So banking without a bank, decentralized finance, right? DeFi, you might hear that. So that lets you lend, borrow, earn interest, move money without a single physical bank being involved. No approval process, no account minimums, no institution deciding whether or not you qualify based on who knows what or what you're allowed to do with your money. We've talked about that last time, right? Right now, over 50 million people globally are actively using decentralized applications. Okay. Many, I'd say maybe most of them are financial. Nearly half of all these are like are finance apps, like I said, right, that are building on Web3 technology. So this is one of the areas that I'm actively involved in because there are real legitimate projects that are creating amazing legitimate pathways for everyday people like you and I to access DeFi earning and trading opportunities that honestly used to be reserved for people with hedge funds or private money, right? And a lot more access. Um, so we talked in episode 2, right, about what happened in like Vietnam, where 86 million accounts were frozen overnight, right? CBDCs that are being designed, like the UK just passed, with programmable restrictions, that debanking trend that's been kind of quietly growing. Web3 is the direct answer to that problem. With decentralized banking infrastructure, no one can freeze your account or restrict your spending of your money or lock you out of your own account. This is not a hypothetical either, okay? This is infrastructure that exists and is being used right now by millions of people around the world. And it's one of the things I'm pretty passionate about, okay? Because financial sovereignty isn't just like a concept when you have the actual tools to back it up. And that's really, really important. Um, and a lot of people in my community, we understand this, we get this, right? And then owning assets that you never could before. So tokenization, maybe some of you've heard like NFTs and things like that, right? Which is kind of a big word for like a fairly simple idea, which is imagining being able to own like a fraction of a piece of real estate, or art or like a private equity fund or a company, right? Not the whole thing, just a piece of it, and hold like actual verifiable ownership of it on the blockchain. So it's again, it's an iteration of it. Like it's growing and changing and remorphing. Because I think a lot of people connect tokenization or NFTs to like what happened in 2022, and it's kind of like felt like a bust to a lot of people. But it's iterating and growing, right? So real world asset tokenization has grown over 200 times over in 5 years, and it's already a $21 billion market. So this is opening up investment access to people who never had it before. That matters a lot to me. Because, one of the things I believe deeply is that wealth building tools should not only be available to people who already have wealth, right? It should be available to you and I to actually make a difference, right? In our lives, in our family lineage, and our wealth legacy. So, um, another place it works is sending money without that middleman taking a cut. And we're going to talk a lot about that later on in the Zoom room. But if you've ever wired money internationally, it can be a little bit slow and clunky. It's very expensive generally. And somewhere between you and the recipient, somebody takes a fee or another fee or another fee, right? So Web3 based payments options are cutting that cost by up to 90% and moving money in seconds as opposed to days. Okay. Or weeks, like literally had money held for weeks, trying to send it overseas. So the crypto remittance market is in the billions and it's growing annually, right? And then supply chains and knowing what you're actually buying. That's the last little point I want to bring up. When a label says something is organic, fair trade, or sourced from a specific place, right now we're literally just trusting whatever's on that label. And we all know, we've heard of stories where like that's actually not always the case, right? That's why they keep coming out with different like certifications or ways to prove that this is in fact what you're paying for, what you're desiring to have. Okay. Instead of just blind trust. I wish that was not the case, but that is the case of just life, right? Yeah. Okay. But with blockchain, every step of that supply chain is recorded, it's tamper proof, and it's verifiable. So you can actually confirm that what you're being told is true, right? And that's already being implemented in food, pharmaceuticals, and like luxury high-end goods. Okay. So none of this is like coming soon, right? This is infrastructure that is built and being built and actually being used right now. And that market is projected to grow from like it's around like 4.5 billion today to nearly 100 billion by 2034. You guys, that's a 40% compounding growth rate year over year. Okay. You don't need all of that to make a change in your life and your family lineage. You just need a little piece of that. Okay. All right, so that brings me to point number three, the adoption curve, and why now is the window. I talk a lot about like catching that wave. You want to ride that wave. Surfers understand this, right? I'm not a surfer, but I understand this concept. Okay. And that's why I want to kind of shift this into this wealth conversation specifically, because this is a thing that changed how I think about this. Every major technology that has ever shifted the world follows a pretty predictable adoption curve. Okay. A small group of early adopters get in first and are generally called crazy. Then a slightly larger group catches on. Then it hits a tipping point, and after that point, everybody rushes in, and the early advantage is essentially gone. Railroads, that actually happened, right? People who positioned early in that infrastructure, they built massive wealth. Think about the names that we know, right? And this is in the US, obviously. The people who waited until trains were everywhere, they just rode the train. They paid to ride that train. The internet, right? We already talked about that. The people who understood early that it was infrastructure, not a fad, and built or invested around that, gosh, you guys, we all know the stories of like the overnight millionaires and billionaires and even more, right? Completely changed their financial trajectories. The people who waited until 2005 to get a website were just catching up, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Mobile technology, same exact story, right? So Web3 is on this same curve trajectory right now. And the data is pretty clear about where we're going. Global blockchain adoption just crossed 10 to 11%-ish. Of course, that fluctuates a bit, but historically, 10 to 15% is the documented tipping point where something crosses that threshold from early adopters into mainstream, right? The internet did this, smartphones did that, and gosh, they never looked back. It just took off, right? So Web3 startups attracted over $7.5 billion in funding in just the first quarter of 2025 alone. Like mind-boggling numbers, right? Harvard's endowment is in it. BlackRock controls over $14 trillion. They launched a tokenized fund. You guys, these are not risk-taking companies, right? These are the most conservative, sophisticated money managers on earth, and they are actively, publicly building, scrambling building here, okay? So the window to be early is still open, but it's closing, okay? So point number four, I'm going to wrap it up here so we can jump into my Zoom room. Okay, so because I didn't share all this just to give you guys an interesting lesson, okay? Interesting facts are great, but like, does it actually change your life? I shared it because I genuinely believe the people who build real lasting wealth in this next decade are going to be the ones to understand what I'm sharing tonight and what is being built right now and move to position themselves with intention, not by gambling or anything like that, right? But by getting educated, moving early, and doing it inside the right community. So that last part matters to me as much as anything, okay? Because I spent years trying to figure these things out, consuming information, spending money on education, trying to find people who are actually doing it and not just talking about it and would share with me what they were doing, right? And so what I've learned, what I know is that learning goes faster, decisions are better and clearer, and like you don't fall into so many potholes, and the whole thing is a lot less overwhelming when you're doing it with people who are also doing it, when you're doing it with the right people, right? So that is what we are building our community inside of my iconicity movement. And this is what we're doing. We're doing it together. We're learning about Web3. We're exploring projects together and tools inside this ecosystem, trading opportunities, banking solutions. We're building it with each other in real time, not just consuming more and more content. We're actually building, we're actually moving, we're actually deciding and taking action. So I'm not here as someone who is an expert in all the things and has figured it all out. I'm here as someone who goes first, right? Who's in it, boots on the ground, learning every day. But I'm building out that table where people who are serious about this can sit down with me, pull up a chair, and we can learn and grow alongside each other and have so much fun doing it. So if that's you, DM me, let's talk, right? Or hop into the Zoom room. I'll drop the link into the chat here, into the comments. So you guys can just come on in. No registration required, right? Come to one of our presentations, learn what this actually looks like in real time and how you can actually use this. Okay? So the people who are leaning in, who are like curious, who are interested in this, you guys are my people. And I want you in the room with me. I want you at the table. Pull up that table, right? Okay, so drop me a comment. Oh, there you go, Karima. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Okay, my girl here, Karima, you've been in this since even before I do, and you understand it, and I love it. I love it. Yes. Um, come on, let's do it. Yeah. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna hop off here so that I can go ahead and open up the Zoom room, but let's go ahead and get started. You guys, come on in. Let's do this together. It's gonna be amazing. And you guys, let's change our lives. Let's change the world together because I am a massive believer around more resources in the hands of good people creates more good in the world. Okay. So this has been a great convo today. And if something you heard here again sparked that curiosity, or maybe you're starting to think differently about your wealth, your freedom, or the way we build our lives and our businesses, that's exactly the point. These conversations are not just about information. They're about awakening possibility. Okay. The world is changing incredibly quickly. It has been, but it still is continuing on, right? The way people build wealth is changing. The way people build businesses is changing. The way people create freedom in their lives is evolving, right? And one of the things I care so deeply about is helping people navigate that intentionally instead of accidentally, right? So come on into our communities. This is like I share lots of information, deeper thoughts, reflections. We build these things together, explore these topics together, right? But we would love to have you in there. But otherwise, come on into Zoom, meet us there, and yeah, let's go. Hello, hello, guys. Sorry, just coming off of coming off of my Facebook Live. It took a little bit longer than I expected. So thanks for holding with me. Ah, so good to see everybody. All right, let me drop this invite into the chat there so people can come on in.